Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind, episode 93.
When we speak those words, what people don't realize is that you create with your words. So when you talk about the things you don't want, you're actually creating them.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Becky Rogers. Becky is a certified BodyTalk practitioner, an ideal LifeVision coach, homeschooling mother of 10, professional violinist, and a humanitarian. Welcome, Becky.
Hello.
Yeah, this is
good to be here.
Super fun to have you here. I've been wanting to have you on our show for a little while, and so I'm so glad that you finally consented to join us. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your family and what you're doing right now?
Sure, I would love to, and I'm so happy to be on your show. I've been watching some of the things that you're doing, and I'm so impressed and so excited for the homeschool community to have this as a resource, especially where so many of us weren't homeschooled growing up, and this is kind of new territory we're in. Sometimes it can be a little challenging, a little bit scary to just jump in. And so I think it's so helpful that we have each other and that we get to kind of pick each other's brains and see. I know for me, one of the things that made a big difference was being able to see other families, parents, moms, dads who had kids a little bit older than mine, especially a little bit further down the trail, to see that everything worked out and everything turned out okay. It was helpful for me to be able to look down that road with other people and make friends. And so I think what you're doing with this is so commendable and so awesome. I'm just super excited about it.
Well, thank you.
Sure. So I have 10 children. My oldest is 23 right now.
Wow.
He just got married last year, and we are expecting our first grandchild in the fall.
Oh my God. And you should see a picture of her. She does not look like she has kids at all.
You're sweet. I'm trying to wrap my brain around that because I feel kind of more like the sister-in-law, and I have to keep reminding myself, no, I'm the mother-in-law. That's kind of freaky. But anyway, my youngest is 3. So we have kids all of those ages down in there. My youngest 2 are girls, and we have 7 boys in a row on the top with a set of boy-girl twins. So my twins have just turned 18. We're starting to lose them out the other end, which is very exciting to see and also very sad for me. I get sentimental about stuff like that. And my husband teases me that I still have a 3-year-old and, we're still negotiating the whole potty training thing and getting that really secure. He says, so it's not going to be over for a while. You don't have to But I have always totally just loved being a mom, and that's always been kind of my passion. I love to share experiences with other moms. And anyway, I think it's really cool. We started homeschooling when my oldest was coming out of 5th grade, and my second was finishing 2nd. And it was kind of an interesting place. I kind of call it just this perfect storm, just how things lined up to be, I don't know, it was just the perfect catalyst for us to take that leap. And some of the things that kind of contributed to that were that with the school district where we lived was doing the new math, kind of the experimental math, and it was super labor intensive for me, and it didn't make any sense, and everything that they did was 10,000 times harder than it was when I learned it in school. And so I was having a hard time helping them with it because I didn't know how they were doing it in school. And so I went to parent-teacher conferences one day, and also I noticed that my second son had been through, he was in 2nd grade, so he was finishing up 3 years of public education, and he couldn't read. So you have to understand that when I started, my oldest child, I was gung-ho, we're going to learn how to read when he's 3, we're going to do all of this stuff. I'm going to be the best perfect mom ever. So he did read quite well before he went to school. And then around the time when I would have made that same path with my second child, I had 2 2-year-olds at home. and so I, in my guilty mom heart, I would say, oh, at least he's starting school in the fall, when he was going to start kindergarten. And so I kind of left it to the public school system for him to learn those things. And when I realized he'd been through a couple of years of that education and he really wasn't reading, and I just started to wonder what they were doing all day at school, because then they would come home with all kinds of homework. And then one of the straws that kind of broke the camel's back with that was that my twins were getting ready to start school. Actually, no, they were in kindergarten. And so all of a sudden I went from 2 kids in school to 4, and the amount of homework, I was dying.
Oh, yeah.
I was dying with homework with my kindergartners, and that just totally put me over the edge. And I remember one night talking to an aunt of mine about it, and she says, well, you can either complain about this or you can do something about it. She was kind of tired of hearing me complain and, not willing to change anything. And so those were some of the things that kind of set me thinking about it. And around that time, I read the Thomas Jefferson Education book, kind of came across it in a funny way. All these random things just kind of lined up. And as I read that, I realized so many of the things were true about the kind of education my children were receiving, as far as it wasn't a classical education.
Hit and miss type learning.
Yeah, and they were having to study things they didn't really care about. They were missing their love of learning phase. Like in that age where they should have been learning to love their education and just learning how to learn, they were focusing so much on academic things. And around that same time, I thought, oh, this is awesome. I'll go to the book depository where they have extra books they'll sell you, from the school district for a dime or something. And so I was all excited about that. And I came home with these loads. But while I was there, I saw this full shelf of biographies of Matt Damon on the shelf. And I had read that as their literature. And so that just kind of made my stomach turn too, that we're so busy. Like these young kids that want to be learning, they want to be exploring the world. This is the natural time for them to do that, and we're killing them with the academics. Point that by the time they outgrow that phase, not only do they not know how to learn and they don't want to, but they absolutely hate the academics, And by that time, then when they're the age where they should be starting to be able to pick up the academics without too much trouble, they already hate it. So now we have to entertain them in their education, and they don't have the strength or the mental power to take on the responsibility of their own education when they're the age that they finally should. And so anyway, just all these kinds of things. I just started to observe things, and it was a very interesting process for me. So I did, I had to bring it to my husband. I'm just thinking about this super crazy idea. If you ask him, he'd probably be happy if I would go back to my crazy ideas that simple. But anyway, so we took that leap, and we took him out of school. And it was interesting because that same year that we started to homeschool, we also had a new child born into our family that over the years proved to be on a completely different learning track of his own. Nothing I'd ever seen before. And so now I look back on it, I think, oh, that was for him. I mean, honestly, it was for all of our kids, but for him, it's made a huge, huge difference that our school doesn't have to look like what other people think. So all of that kind of stuff. It's been a really fantastic journey. My one regret right now is that we didn't do it sooner, probably.
Did you have any problems deschooling your kids? Like when they brought them home, trying to get them into that level of learning phase? I mean, what did that look like for you?
I've always tried to keep it very simple, just because we have a lot of children in a lot of different stages of learning. And so I've kept our core curriculum just very simple. And so what that looked like for us was I gave them a reading time period, according to what I kind of felt was appropriate for each of them, that they were required to read a certain amount. And I told them, I don't really care what you read. I don't really care what it is, but you do need to do this requirement every day. And then there was a kind of a similar, just a little writing thing. And we incorporated, our religious reading in with that as well. We do a lot of extracurricular, like music and things like that. And so that is kind of our core. And then all of these other things, I just try to keep it very simple, and math as well. So what it looked like was I would take them to the library and I'd say, just check out whatever you want. And they each just chose whatever they were interested in. And that's kind of where it went. So for example, my 6th grader, that first year, he checked out all of the books that he could find on mythology. He had friends that were, playing Age of Mythology, things like that on the computer. And so he went to the library and got Norse, Egyptian, Roman, Greek mythology, everything he could find on that. And he read and read and read. And I mean, at that point I was keeping track of what reading just so I could see, because I was nervous about this whole thing anyway. What he was doing. So I would let him do that. And thousands and thousands and thousands of pages. It was ridiculous. And then one day he came to me and he said, okay, so I think I would just he asked me for a notebook. That's what it was. So he could just write down everything he had learned about mythology. I said, knock yourself out, babe. So then he kind of made a book out of it. And around the same time, my daughter, who would have been probably only 7, she was checking out all the books about Mozart she could find. So they kind of set up their own track of just whatever they wanted to study. And in that age of children, that's worked really well for us, just letting them, well, for example, a couple weeks ago, we ended up with a pair of rabbits. I'm not sure how that happened. Exactly. But now, of course, we got to find out about rabbits, and then we got to find out about baby rabbits, and then we got to find out, and then our parakeets actually laid some eggs one day, and I'm thinking, oh no, what are we going to do with that? Okay, back to the library.
So do you see that when you kind of let kids do their own thing, do you see that they're well-rounded in the end?
Yes.
Like they kind of naturally move through things by themselves anyway?
Well-rounded enough. So I think well-rounded is something that, it depends on people's definition, because you can read a well-trained mind, things like that, where everything is scheduled and you have to know these certain things and that's that, and it's awesome. And if that's your style, I think that's so great. When I read that, I just was so overwhelmed. It just made me want to crawl in a closet because I just can't. I have other friends who make it work so well. And they do such a great job of it. I just know it won't work very well for me personally. But, my 18-year-old daughter, she finished school a year early, and she decided that rather than start college, she would go to aesthetic school so she could get her master esthetician license.
Oh, wow.
So that she could, better support herself through her college education. And she's actually a musician, a very natural musician. She's the one that was checking out the books on Mozart from the beginning. Fabulous pianist and an equally, impressive violin player. So talented. And so the thing that has been fun for me with homeschool is being able to find out what their gifts are and then tailor their education to that. So for example, for her, and by the time she was done with her homeschool, if she wanted to do the aesthetics thing, I kind of left that up to her. It's not that I didn't support her, but I just said, that's great if you want to do that, but you got to figure it out. I'm not doing it for you. Because I thought that way I'll know how bad she really wants to do it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
She had to come up with money. She had to arrange schedules. And anyway, I was so proud of her because she did it. She did it, and she's just graduating right now, I think this upcoming week in a few days, with her Master Aesthetics license.
Oh, that's neat.
She's taking a yoga certification, like teaching certification course this summer before she starts as a piano performance major in the fall, which will be a completely another level of intensity for her. But I feel like she's equipped to handle that. Now, one of the things that she was challenged with is that math is not her natural subject.
Yeah.
She didn't enjoy it. She didn't love it. And she didn't. So there were, certain places where I just had to say, honestly, you don't need this math. Because if this is the career path that you're going to be on and this is what you want to do with your life, you don't really need that much math. And if you get to a place in your life where you need it, then you'll have an opportunity to learn it and you'll be able to learn it quickly. So if you look at well-rounded and say, well, what does that mean? Do whatever they want.
Yeah, you have people that they go through that whole school system and, and then they never pick up a book ever again. That's when the cool things, I guess, is just to keep that love of learning alive where they're interested and...
Well, and to instill in them the confidence that they can learn whatever they want.
Yeah, that they're the master of that, that they don't have to have an expert around them.
Yes, and I try to be the best example of that in my own life, In fact, my kids sometimes make fun of me, like, oh, mom's out of class again. Because there's things like that I think, oh, I don't know this. Oh, I can learn it, And if I can set that example for then everything.
That's great. So what did your educational journey look like that led you to discover what you love to do? We talked about you being a professional violinist and an ideal life coach. And
oh my gosh, yeah. It's hilarious, actually, if you really want to know the truth. Yeah, so in my family, we did music like we do in our family. My mom, she practiced with us, and she actually wrote a book on how to get your child to practice without resorting to violence, and she is the master at that. I grew up in a family of 8 kids, and we all played the piano and something else. Most of us still play at a pretty professional level, and we're all quite proficient at whatever it was that she did with us. And so that's how I grew up, and so that's kind of where I started my journey. And the thing for me, I just always knew if I was going to study music, that's what I was going to do. So when I went, that was actually my college degree, was in violin performance. And I've always had a violin studio, and I played recording sessions. I played professionally,
that's cool.
In different studios, recordings, TV shows, albums, things like that.
Oh, that's really cool.
I totally love doing it. So fun, but it's not super steady work. And so, as you probably, most of you know on the call, it's expensive to have a big family.
Yeah.
family, really, especially if you're going to, if you're even doing their education and handling all of that. And so it was kind of just always a necessity for me to bring in some of the money, particularly for their education. My husband would do his best to manage as much of the household things as he could, but it's been a stressful journey for honestly, like 2 decades. It's been difficult. And that has always been kind of the mess that we were in. And I was always searching for a way to get out of that. And so I did real estate for a while. I was a buyer's agent, and then the market fell out, with no buyers. And that was really depressing. And then my husband went back to school to finish his degree. He was in exercise science. He had started in health promotion, back when we were in college, and it wasn't quite the right major and wasn't really going to do for him what he wanted to do. And he got just caught in that. I'll just, work a job to pay for my family, and kind of got away from what he loved doing. Yeah. So he decided he would go back, which is an awesome thing to do when you have one baby in a basement apartment. Really, really difficult when you have a house full of teenagers that all have, things they need to do, and they're kind of more expensive.
Exactly.
So, yeah, right. We're out of the dollar store birthday place now. And it's not, we're not talking extravagant stuff. We're talking just the stuff they need, right? So, yeah. So it was kind of this crazy place where he was working full time and going to school full time, and he would rotate his lunch hours around to the different classes. So like Monday he would go to his class at 1, and Tuesday he would go to his class at 11. And his teachers were really flexible with him and really helpful. But there was one class that he needed to go to. She wanted a body in the class for purposes of discussion. And so I actually went to that class for him.
Oh, that's funny.
And like I would, if she showed a DVD, I would take it home for him, and he would watch it, and then I would bring his homework back and turn it in, and his papers and all that kind of stuff. And the class was called Body, Mind, Spirit, Wellness.
Well, that's interesting.
It was very interesting. It was the most, and now it just cracks me up, because we were just, I think at that time we had a foreclosure notice on our house.
Oh no.
I was busting my rear to get through a medical transcription course so that we could keep our house. And then I was looking at the prospect that I was going to be working 45 hours a week for the rest of my life, where I'm not ever going to retire. And I chose that job because I could do it at home. So I would get up at, 4 o'clock in the morning and type before my kids got up. And then I would stay up late. I think I was sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night.
Oh, no.
Kind of homeschool my kids at the same time. And honestly, they were doing a lot of it on their own. And we were just like hanging on by our fingernails, But even with that, we both still felt like they were better off at home than they were.
You can't dispute the freedom that kids have.
Yeah. And so we were just doing the best that we could. But I went to that class, and I started to learn about so many different things, about energy. And that's where I came across BodyTalk as a healing modality. And it helped me so much in my own life, actually, really in a transformational way. And I thought, man, everybody in my family needs this, whether it's my daughter with anxiety, or my, 10-year-old who can't read, or my husband who's totally stressed out. And I thought, well, I can't afford to take us all, so I'll just take a class, I'll learn how to do that just to manage my family and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, it was kind of a crazy thing. And so that's kind of where that went. And that class was totally for me to take, just got set up in kind of a funny way, but it's totally a score, don't you think? Because I got this amazing class and I didn't have to do any homework. He did all the homework, and I just sat in this cool class. So anyway, so one thing kind of led to another, and then it just was so transformational for me. And then other people started coming and asking me if I could help them, and it's just been one of those things. I'm just kind of following along on whatever shows up every day, and everything has changed.
Are you still worried about finances and stuff? That's gotten better because you're doing the...
So changing. We're still cleaning up the mess, but it's coming, and we're so much less stressed out, and it just feels good. It feels really good. It kind of turned out that happened to be one of my specialties, is helping people with their abundance blocks and finding out where their energy about money is weird, and helping them to kind of clear that and fix it. And so that's been really, really fun, and just other help things. And then through the course of that with my clients, I came across a program called Ideal Life Vision. I actually came across it at a mom's retreat at a homeschool thing a few years ago, and kind of played with it a little bit, but didn't get all the way into it. And then it started showing up, over and over in my newsfeed. And so whenever that happens, then I try to pay attention. And so I did start.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what the Ideal Life Vision is? I know a couple people that do that, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah, it's this fabulous, fabulous tool, basically. So what it is my whole life I've kind of known that we create what we think about. But the problem that I had was that I couldn't focus long enough.
Well, you were super busy too.
But even my concentration, like I couldn't, like if I have this problem and the money and all that kind of stuff, and I don't know what we're going to eat, and we're out of money and it's the 8th of the month, all that, like my brain is so wrapped up in that. And I put so much energy into that I create more of it and I make it worse. And I can't concentrate hard enough on what I want to get my mind off what I don't want. And so I just kept creating more of what I didn't want. And so that was kind of my challenge. I was like, I don't even know how to do that. I can't concentrate that hard. But the LifeVision program actually just does it for you. And so basically it entails creating with your words the life that you want, what it would look like if you could live that life that you want. And so for me, I just wrote in there like things about my relationships. I wrote in there things about my health, like what kinds of foods that I enjoy eating. I wrote in there, my obligatory 2-mile-a-day run or whatever. I mean, just, things like that I hate. Just so you know, I got out of every PE class I was supposed to take in high school. By pulling the orchestra card. I don't have time to take orchestra and they need me, and so I can't take PE. So, which is funny because I'm married to a health guy. So
that is funny.
I know, it's really funny. So anyway, so things like that I wrote in there, and I wrote in, finances, I wrote in professional things, and I started to use it. So what you do, you write it like that, and you do have to word it right, which is why I really highly recommend the program to use. And this is why I coach it for people, to help them make sure that they word it right, because you can get yourself in trouble if you don't word things right and actually attract the thing that you don't want. So I did that and I started to use it, and then things just started to change. Just crazy things. Like within about 2 weeks, I had written in there that I would really, really love some help with my house for 3 hours a week. But again, I didn't think I could afford it, and that was out of the question. So within about 2 weeks, just this perfect situation happened and just fell in my lap. And I just realized, no, actually, I really cannot not afford it.
Yeah.
And so I hired this really cute girl to come help me, and it was like heaven. And then I just kind of laughed to myself, and I thought, man, that was super easy. I should have requested 6 hours. 6 hours showed up so easily. So I went back and I rewrote it, and I put that in there. And in about 2 weeks, she came to me. She said, I'm noticing all these people coming and going. Like, what is it that you do exactly? And would you be willing to trade me for some work? And I said, well, if you want, I'll just pay you for the work that you're doing, and I'll just double your hours. So
that's cool.
I mean, it was just like that. Those kinds of things happen. So things like that happening over and over and over again.
Before we go on, let us take a minute and hear about our sponsors.
Hello, fire starters. It's Mark here. I know there comes a time each week when you listen to all the Luminous Mind podcasts that are available, and in a sad voice you ask yourself, what am I to do now? Well, despair no more. Just go to theluminousmind.net and start your free 30-day trial from Audible and download 2 free audiobooks. Now you can fill that downtime while you wait for the next Luminous Mind podcast with a great book from the world's largest selection of professionally narrated audiobooks. You can choose from over 180,000 titles, including new releases and bestsellers, and you can exchange any book you don't love anytime, no questions asked, with a great listen guarantee. So until the next episode, start reading and keep the fire burning.
Welcome back to the Luminous Mind with Becky Rogers, an ideal life coach.
Another thing that happened was I needed an office not in my house, because my house to see clients was great for my friends and family and stuff like that, but I was starting to have professional people call me, and it was kind of awkward. They'd say, where's your office? I'm like, in my house, which, I mean, it had been fine up to that point, but I could tell that my business was sort of stifled because I didn't have another place. But I also was in this beginning part of business, and I didn't have a lot of extra money for overhead or rent and to have to furnish a place, and it was just so overwhelming. So I wrote that in there. And then, I think by mid-February, the perfect situation just dropped in my lap again. It was kind of a no-brainer. Like, you would be really dumb to not do this. And so things like that. I mean, I had written in there some things with my relationships with some of my in-laws that I was really wanting to repair. And in about 6 weeks, those started to just shift, and it's been really amazing in that way.
That's really cool.
But one of the biggest things that happened for me was I got this harebrained idea, and I've been getting more crazy harebrained ideas more and more, because now, the ceiling's blown off my brain of what's possible. And so I'm a lot more open to crazy stuff, right? My son was graduating from boot camp in South Carolina, and he asked he told me one day, he said, "Mom, this is when my graduation is. I totally don't expect you to come." Because honestly, like, we don't go an hour away for the weekend, because we've always told this story about how we don't have time and we don't have money to do it. And so he says, "I don't expect you to come, but just so you know, this is when it is." And so I get this crazy idea that we should go out there and surprise him and not tell him that we're coming, which involves, a trip across the country. And so we actually
lots of money for that. And
right, exactly, right. So, and I honestly, to this day, I still am not totally sure how it happened exactly, but just, different courses of events. And I mean, I could tell you the whole entire story, but it'll take too long for the purposes of this. But we ended up going out across Texas and Oklahoma, and we got halfway out across there, and my dad was with us, and he said, if we come back Denver way, like, all these historical sites that we want to see, they're on the way. We could do that. And I just looked at him and I realized, you're right. That's crazy. So, and just so you know, so what you do with the LifeVision is after you write it, you just record it and you put accelerated learning music underneath it so that it takes those things that you want into your subconscious mind. It clears the reticular activating system in your brain, which is basically a filter of what you know to be possible or not. So you just put stuff in there and your brain will solve the problem for you. Like, it will bring you solutions.
That sounds awesome.
Kind of amazing ways. It is so awesome. So what happened was, usually for me, I listen to my LifeVision in my sleep, like just as I'm going to sleep or right as I'm waking up. I'll just stick in my earphones and I'll listen to it. So honestly, I forget stuff that I write in there.
Because you're half asleep when you...
Oh, wait, I think this is in my LifeVision, And so that's what had happened. So I am driving across the country. I have all this extra time on my hands driving. So I stick in my earphones and I listen to it consciously. And I get to this one line in there that says, "I take my kids to see all these historical sites."
Oh, wow.
So I had been trying to do for literally 20 years and could not I couldn't wrap my brain around, like, how much gas will that even take? I have no idea. Where would we stay? How long will that take? Like, it was too big for my brain. I couldn't even do it. And we did it on accident because I had written it in my LifeVision.
That's cool.
I know, right? So then I came home and I was like, holy smokes, what else could I put in there? Like, what are the impossible things? And so I had gotten some other harebrained idea that I wanted to go to Africa and do some humanitarian work, but I didn't know what that would look like. And again, totally impossible. But I thought, if I write it in here, and even if it takes 2 or 3 or 4 years, that would still be super cool, right?
Yeah.
So I wrote in one line in there about going to Africa to do humanitarian work, and it took 10 months for that to show up.
Wow.
So I went to Kenya as
That's cool.
an ideal LifeVision trainer, and we taught the people over there how to write their life visions and how to start manifesting different things in their lives. And it was amazing. And
and how is that changing their life? I mean,
it changes everything. And because all of a sudden, their life is just whatever it is. All of a sudden they're realizing, what, you mean I could have a business if I want? Yeah, you can. You mean this relationship could be better? Yeah, just write it in there.
Wow.
And honestly, that's what I tell people. People will always, friends, acquaintances, clients will always talk about the things that they don't like in their life. Oh, this thing is, how are you? Oh, this thing's going funny in my life. This thing, and so I just tell people, just write it in your LifeVision. Write it in your LifeVision and then use that tool and it will shift it.
That's cool. Kind of goes back to what you're talking about with your aunt, telling you, how are you going to change that? Because we do. Yes. We complain a lot about, we don't like this or we don't want that. And we just go with the flow because we just think we just have to do it this way, that there's only one way to do it.
And the problem with that is that when we speak those words, what people don't realize is that you create with your words. So when you talk about the things you don't want, you're actually creating them.
Yeah.
And if people have the feelings, around those things that they don't want, whether it's a fear thing or an anger thing or a sadness thing, if they have those emotions, they're still creating it. But as soon as they say it, there's power in that.
Kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes. And it comes, and as soon as they write it, it shows up even faster. And so, usually we just kind of by default do this process, but we don't know we're doing it. And that's why we have what we don't want. And if you can learn how to be conscious of it and consciously create that, then that changes so many things.
That's
so many
cool.
things.
So all the experiences that we've talked about, how has that caused your paradigm to shift and your philosophy to kind of change over time and with experience? You were telling me before we started recording that the education philosophy is even going to change. What's your life going to look like?
Well, when we started off with, the whole thing is an evolutionary process. I mean, we've been doing homeschooling. We've been doing this since like 2003, I think. So we've been at it for a little while. And it doesn't really look anything like it did when we started. If anything, it looks less like school, and those are just things that happen as you just kind of get in your groove and you kind of feel what works for you and what doesn't. Honestly, it's going to change a little bit every year just because the needs of your family are going to change, right?
Yeah.
But overall, generally, in the last few years, everything has changed because we used to be a family of all of the things we couldn't do. If our kids would say, we want to do this thing or that, and we'd say, oh, we can't do that because of whatever reason we can't do it, right?
Yeah.
Now, when they come, they say, Mom, I want to do this. And I say, like my daughter, I want to go to, skin school. I'm like, put it in your LifeVision. And then she has to own it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My son, Mom, can we get a trailer? I'm like, I don't know. Put it in your LifeVision because he has a yard business and he needs to haul his lawnmowers and his equipment and stuff like that, And he'll even ask his dad, Dad, can I have this? And my husband's like, oh, you don't, blah, 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 you don't need that, anyway, and I tell him, just put it in your LifeVision, see what shows up. And honestly, it'll show up for him because he really does need it. So,
well, I love the ownership that creates. We just love to blame people for everything, but I love the ownership, and then it does keep it positive.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah. So that's one of the biggest things. Instead of all of the camps, we now have a family of, hey, we can do that if we want. If we want to bad enough, we put it in there, we put it on the vision board or whatever other tools they want to use. And then you just start getting ideas to make those things happen. And it's just so exciting to see. 2 of my kids ran marathons last fall. And one of them, when she started to run, I think she ran around the block and called me having an asthmatic attack because she couldn't breathe, in a panic. I can't breathe. And then, using that tool, she trained and they ran marathons. And I was super proud of them.
Wow, that's awesome.
So now we're looking at humanitarian trips. And that's a big shift for our family and what I think our homeschool is going to be like. Because we're going to cut back on this, like the scheduled academics. It's not that we're not going to do it, but we are going to do less of it because right now our homeschool is actually living our life, picking a big project. We have a big project right now in the humanitarian department because I'm taking another humanitarian team to Ghana in the fall, and there are openings still on that team if anyone wants to come with us. You will not go cheaper than this. But we're working with orphanages over there. We have a couple of schools we're collecting books for their libraries. We have a pump we're trying to rehabilitate so that they have easier access to clean water. We're actually teaching LifeVision there as well. Doing a couple of workshops there. We're setting up overall, it's kind of a big, and it's in the beginning stages, but it's going to be so awesome. But we're setting up a project where we assign a family here to a family someplace. It doesn't have to be in Africa, but right now that's where it's starting because that's where we have our connections in different places in Africa. But I think we'll probably go all over the world, just setting up families here to mentor families over there and having us be able to bring the resources so that it doesn't cost the families much to participate, if anything. Mostly just sharing their expertise and being willing to develop a relationship with a family and a friendship and being able to kind of determine what their needs are. You can't really educate people if they don't have food.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to bring those things to them, but we really love the interaction between having a family here, mentor a family there. So we're in the process of getting that up and running. And that could be anything from just like pen pals for kids to Eagle projects or school co-op projects, setting those up in a way that is easily accessible to even our homeschool kids. Actually, they don't even have to get into the older ages. I mean, we can do it from the youngest ages as well, especially when you do it as families. So super, super exciting. I'm way excited about that. So that's one of the things that our family's kind of taking on big ownership with. And I think what that looks like for us over the next year or two is taking regular trips, humanitarian trips. I have a couple of kids. Their co-op is going to Guatemala in April, and so actually that's scheduled on top of one of my trips to Kenya. So they have to choose. They have to choose.
Wonderful.
But we're looking at taking families and looking at finding corporate sponsorship for that, because obviously, I mean, it's a super cool thing and it's totally doable for a person to earn money and save money to do that kind of thing. But when you want to take multiple people in a family, that can be cost prohibitive. especially, homeschool families. We're so good at being so frugal, right? So we're in the process of putting together some really frugal programs like that, but also bringing in some corporate sponsorship with that. So if anyone out there knows any corporate programs that are geared for humanitarian aid that would be interested in hooking up with us on that, I would love those resources and those referrals. But we'd also love any referrals of anybody who even wants to participate, anybody who wants your family to just meet people on the other side of the world, because it's so, so cool.
That sounds awesome. So is this going to be like a long-term thing, or do you have a time limit on it?
No, it's going to be a long-term thing. It's we're just getting it up and going now. We have our trips that we're going on in this next little bit. We're still in, website development and all that kind of stuff. There are a team of us, actually, homeschool moms and some other people. We've been actually to Kenya. This is my first trip to Ghana. My son's been living there for a couple of years, and so he will be home in the fall, and then we're just going to go back, and he knows people, and process of putting that together now. And I think we're going to just get it like a well-oiled machine, so it'll just work. People can go. One of the things, it's fun to do a project and raise money, and we're totally all over that. And if people want to do that, totally call me. I will give you my number. But it's also fun when people, if they have the means to do it, if they raise that money to actually go and serve the people. It's so good for kids. It's so, so good for them to be serving people and to see other people. It's so easy for them to complain about having to share a room with a little sister, or not having their own space, or not having anything to wear, and it's like, you don't have anything to wear? Because I can show you that. I can show you a little child that I saw that I wasn't sure if it was a girl or boy, and because they were wearing the Buzz Lightyear costume that someone had donated, and that's their clothes. That's what they've got, and they're happy.
So with the Ideal Life Vision that you're doing in Africa, you're going over there and you're kind of showing people how to be more self-sufficient themselves. Is that correct? Because one of the problems that I heard that when we serve kind of underprivileged countries or people is that we'll just donate, for instance, a bunch of shoes. And so we donate all these shoes, and then what ends up happening is that any shoe maker that there is in that area goes out of business because they get all these free shoes. But then, when they're needing more, there's still nobody there to make them any shoes. Does that make sense? Or
right? Yeah. Well, and so that's one of the points of this. And we have worked in the past with Reach the Children in Kenya, and that's one of their criteria, is that it has to be self-sustaining and self-sufficient. Like, they have to have some skin in the game of their own.
Yeah.
And so wherever we can, we try and do that. And that's why I was trying to put together this whole project last year before I realized that Ideal Life Vision plays such a crucial part in it. Because the Life Vision, that whole process of teaching them that self-sustaining, like how to create their own life, is so key. That's the underpinning foundation of it all.
Yeah, that's what I think is so neat about your mentoring program. It helps, like you said, it helps the person that's here because they realize that they need to be an awful lot more grateful for the things that they have, but then also as a mentoring situation for, I know farmers and stuff that go over there and show them how we do crops here to help them grow better crops there.
Yes, and so we're going to try and bring all of that in. That's the whole point, is that we're families that are mentoring families and determining what their needs really are and how is the best way to support them and do that in a way that doesn't hurt them. So that, but with the kids, it was so cool for me to go, and at the same time, I'm like, I got to share this experience with my kids. Because first of all, it gives them a goal that's impossible in their mind. And yet I can kind of guide them and mentor them through it now so that we can make that happen. And to me, it's not such a huge big deal.
Yeah, I guess that's where your paradigm's shifted, is that you've seen enough of these positive things happen just by, making that vision for yourself. And then,
well, and not only that, but I've seen how much of my own money belief issues, my kids have kind of stoked up and adopted on their own.
Oh, yeah.
And so for me, this is kind of a way for me to help repair some of the damage that's happened from them living with me. Like that, because even there we see it different, Like usually we just went to their night on their Guatemala trip where they kind of rolled out the game plan. And in the old days, I would have had a heart attack and died over that. Well, there's no way we can do that. We can't do that, And now I was just like, let's just think of what we need to do it. And when you open your brain in that way, it will bring you solutions,
you just make it happen.
Yeah. My trip to Africa last year, I had no idea how to do that. No idea at all. And then one day I had an idea, I could teach a class on this. certain topic, and I'll just let it be a donation. I won't charge people to come to it except what they want to, what they feel it's worth for them to donate for that cause. Anyway, I think I pulled in like $700 off that one evening.
Holy cow.
Class. And just things like that just started showing up, and I was like, oh, I could do that. Okay, I just followed up on all of the ideas that came to me.
Yeah.
And didn't second guess them. I just ran with it, and it totally worked.
Yeah,
so
there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah, I put in there a trip to India just because I wanted to see if I could. I just got back in May. I actually went as a delegate to a global women's economic forum as a delegate from Utah to there, and such an interesting experience. Whole new world opened up as I realized, these are people at the UN who are making policy, and they're in a 4 to 5 day conference on women's issues. Nobody is talking about the mothers, like motherhood. Like it's not
even an issue.
Yeah. Like it used to be. If anything, it's a liability, That's what they're teaching, that's what they're doing. So there's that. Anyway, so I my wheels are spinning on that. Like how can we help to educate the mothers, So that's another piece of this whole humanitarian effort as well. I think by the time we're done, we're going to be setting up some homeschool co-ops in Africa, and
that's cool.
And teaching them, because over there it's a privilege to go to school,
Yeah.
And they're all over the rights of the child to have an education, which is all well and good. But if they don't have the money to go to school, they think they can't have an education. And our whole thing is that we want to teach them that they can
still educate themselves.
They can still educate themselves, yeah. And the privilege of the mother,
Yeah, that's true. I love that. I love all that work that you're doing. That just sounds amazing. I just actually talked to a guy from the UK, and he actually works for another company called the Fuse School, and they're trying to do these quick 5-minute videos so that people in Africa, specifically, they're targeting Africa, can get that education. And they're doing very short ones so that they can have the broadband or the internet service to provide it. But that's, I guess, a huge thing that so many people are working on, is trying to educate those countries that feel like they can't do this on their own.
Right, exactly.
That's awesome. So we've gone on about 50 minutes. It's been so fun talking to you. But what is one advice or encouragement you would give to somebody who's just starting out? I mean, there's so many different avenues we could go this way.
My biggest one piece of advice, well, for people just starting out, I would say just start, and don't wait till you know all the details. Don't wait for you to feel like you know how to do it. You just start with it and just know that it's going to change. It's going to evolve, and it's going to look different. And if something doesn't work, don't throw the whole baby out with the bath. Just tweak it. Figure out what's not working and just change it. It doesn't have to look a certain way. And just to kind of take your own judgment out of there, and just to be more trusting of yourself, knowing that you are going to make mistakes. It's okay. That's all part of the education process as well, right? So.
Yeah, if we wait until something's perfect, we're never going to do it. I mean, that's when I started this podcast. I just started it. Just like, this is what I'm going to do. And hopefully it's getting better as time goes on. But that fear will be debilitating.
Well, sometimes we have our head so in it that we think we have to know everything about it. And so because our brain is so active, we don't listen to our heart. And actually, the heart is the true part. If you listen to the heart part of it telling you what to do, and don't worry so much about the head part, you will make a lot less mistakes.
I feel like when I do that, I'm happier too. I mean, some of the decisions that I've made definitely doesn't follow like societal norms of what is expected, but I feel happier.
Right.
I can walk down the street with a big smile on my face and feel good about who I am because I'm following, that intuition. Anyway, what God has necessarily planned for my life, not somebody else.
Right. Absolutely.
That's awesome. So if you could leave a legacy, what would it be?
I think right now it would be, and even this would probably change depending on what month or year you talk to me, but I think now it has to do with just teaching people that you can do impossible things, just that knowledge that we create what we think about. And if you take off those limitations, they're all made up anyway.
They really are. We don't realize it.
Yeah, if you can take those off, that you can actually just do impossible things. And to pay attention to what those seeds are that God puts in your heart. Even if they feel like they're impossible and you don't know how to do it, just let them nurture, just let them grow, and just trust them. But yeah, that's probably my biggest thing. That's what I'm trying to teach my own kids right now, is that really the sky's the limit. You can do whatever.
Well, don't you feel like kind of at the beginning of all this process, I mean, we kind of talked about when your life was, you had problems with financial things and just the stress of everything that was going on. Don't you realize all the ideas that you kind of shoved out of your brain because of that, that impossible kind of that scarcity, coming from that place of scarcity instead of abundance.
Yes. Well, there's a big difference between grocery thinking and mission thinking, you know. When you're so focused on how you're going to pay all your bills, then you don't let your brain work on, in those higher faculties of coming up with real solutions to things. And when you focus on living your mission and doing that, then the rest of it just sort of happens.
That's awesome. Well, this has been a big eye-opener for me, too, so I appreciate it. Is there any final parting words of advice that you have, or maybe a favorite quote you'd like to share? And then, of course, give us your contact information. Let people know how they can get in touch with you.
You know what? I honestly, my final parting words are just, if you're interested in participating in any of this at any level, so whether that means, learning how to do your own life vision, or just participating with the humanitarian projects, if you have an Eagle Scout that needs a project, or, a co-op group that wants to do a project, or a family, if you want to do a family-sized project, we got those too. If you want to participate in the mentoring aspect of that, just please shoot me an email to ILV, which stands for Ideal Life Vision, but just ILV transformation@gmail.com. So ILVtransformation@gmail.com, and I can hook you up with any of those things. Right now we're kind of putting together email lists for who wants to be involved while we're getting it organized. But honestly, I can hardly sleep at night because I'm so excited about it. So.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been so fun talking to you.
I've
learned a ton. So
thank you for inviting me.
Hey, fire starters. I'm just going to cut in here really quickly and let you know that my second son, Jacob, has decided to join Becky Rogers' efforts in getting supplies over to Africa for school. I know I have a lot of local listeners. If this interests you, please contact us. We will be putting together a package to be able to get down to Becky to send with her when she goes to Africa. So we wish her the best of luck. We want to see schools in Africa grow and families be able to be educated themselves and to be more self-sufficient. So thank you. Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Becky Rogers, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list and consider joining our program by going to the scheduling tab to become a fire starter today. Help support the podcast by making all your Amazon purchases through the free Amazon widget on our website. Also, sign up to receive 2 free audiobooks from Audible at theluminousmind.net. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Google+. Get our audio content on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider telling your friends about us. Leave us a review. Tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.